Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to our very first episode of The Human Behind the Title. So, I am your host, Tehreem Nadeem, and I am so excited to kick off this series where we go beyond job titles and discover the real person behind them. So, today I have someone very special with me. Ever since I announced his name on LinkedIn post, so my inbox has been flooded with messages, people around the globe messaging me, and very excited to learn more about his personality and the leader who is here. So, without wasting any further time, let's welcome the king of actuarial world, Mr. Omer Morshad sahab.
Thanks, Tarek. So you're embarrassing me now, Tarek. You made me a king now.
You are. Assalamu alaikum. How are
Thanks.
you?
Walaikum salam. Fine, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
First of all, I would like to thank you. It's very overwhelming for me to host you as a guest because I'm very at the junior level and you are the most senior personality of our profession. So thank you very much for joining me.
No, thank you, sir. So welcome. So throughout my career, the one thing that I've tried to do is because I love this profession, and one thing I've tried to do is to encourage people to become actuaries. So any forum where this objective is being fulfilled, I'll always have time for.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let's start. So tell us about your early life. What was your school and where you started your career? How this actuarial thing come into your mind? And then you built a legacy in actuarial world by starting a consulting firm. We want whole and each and every detail from you, from
Okay.
start to end.
Okay, so I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I was born in what's now Bangladesh, uh, from Dhaka, and I grew up in a place which is a very small town called Narayanganj, which is the bank of a very large river. First 7 years, and then the two are connected. So I'll give you a little, how I became an actuary is connected a little bit to the history. So my passion when I was young was actually the sciences and especially chemistry. So to that extent that although I was young in my like 12, 13 years old, I had a full-scale chemistry lab in our house. So that was my passion and that is what I wanted to pursue. Uh, I grew up in Dhaka. We went to a very, very good school it's called St. Joseph's. So in St. Joseph's in Bangladesh was an all-boys school. And they were run by Christian missionaries, very, 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 very good school. And a lot of the initial, I think, education, I credit to that. My mother was from what was then West Pakistan, and my father was Bengali. So we used to come regularly to my nana's place for holidays. And the reason that's relevant is in 71 we came just before the war, and then the war happened. And it became a separate country, and we got stuck in Karachi, if I can put it that way. So when my father applied for going back because for him that was home and his whole family was there. But while we were waiting to be what was called repatriation, my father died, and then my mother decided to stay in Karachi. So just after this happened, this decision was made that we would stay in Pakistan. A couple of our uncles got together. I had a very, very fine actuary, Mr. Sajid Akram Zahid. He was an actuary qualified early. He was by Khalu. So he was one of the people who were trying to decide what should, we had three brothers, what should these boys do now they're staying here. So we had to work because we had nothing else left. Everything was in Bangladesh. So he said, Omar, you're bright in maths, come and work for me, right? So I think I thought about it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and yes, so that's how I became an actuary.
Nice,
Not a scheme of grand thinking. It was a necessity at that point in time. But alhamdulillah, once I got into it, then it was different. And I learned a lot from, I must mention him because I learned a lot from him. He was a very straightforward and simple person, and he was very good at what he did. Maybe it didn't come out so much. He wasn't the most expressive of people, but very, very good at what he did. So I'll always be thankful to him. for that initial. So that's how I became became an actuary. Uh, else, I probably would have been a chemical engineer somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. So looking back, was there any defining moment in your career? Like, is there like is कोई vision था आपका, some kind of thing to start a consulting firm like SHMA?
I wouldn't have thought so. I didn't really think so. Because I said because of our history, so all my whole family, three of brothers, we were Bengalis in Pakistan, so we didn't fit in very well. So we all of us went westwards. So in England, and I worked in England for 7 years, and
Yes.
my intent was actually never to come back. It was when we left, but I also had a turn of heart. I became, I think just before I left Pakistan, afterwards, I developed a little bit of a passion for Islam and religion. So when I looked at it, when I started thinking, I did a lot of thinking at that stage about personal life, nothing to do with the actual exam to anyone, but what one needs to do with one's life. And I think in England, then when I decided I would want to come back. I think the biggest driving factor was the fact that I got married very young, so I didn't really want to bring my children up in the Western society. It's very high risk, so that's probably the thing that got me back. Uh, and at that stage, there were I think I used to say there were three employers of actuaries. There was State Life,
Okay.
Sajid Saab's firm, and Samir Hassan Saab's firm. So Dr. Hassan. So I decided I wanted a little bit of broader canvas. So I did my accounting, chartered accountants exams as well. So I worked 5 years for an accounting firm in the UK. That was also
Very nice.
very learning experience because when you go and do an audit and you obviously have the technical know-how as to what's involved, they put me in the insurance audit division and then in the computer audit division. So I learned a lot during that time because the City of London is probably, we go and audit large companies, Lloyd's brokers, everybody, that you get to learn a lot as to how
Yes.
things are done. So that was very useful. I think the decision to come back obviously then changed my mind. And so much so that, because the actual profession was very limited, I actually, when I came back, I decided to, with some friends who were like-minded, to start something with respect to IT work. And
Okay.
that's effectively when we came back. I actually joined AF Ferguson with an insistence that I would only join if I worked in their IT division. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's that. So much so I spent. Uh, my boss, again, somebody I should mention at that time, was a gentleman called Zishan Qureshi, and he passed away. He was a very fine man. And I spent a lot of the first year actually doing hands-on programming. And there was an upheaval in Ferguson at that time, so I rescued a lot of projects. So I spent a few years doing no actuarial work at all, but doing purely in software, down from a programmer level. So although I was a qualified actually by then, so that was also, but I think that then when I started working, in fact, when I came back to Pakistan, I am very independent minded. So I don't fit in very well, if you like, into people telling me what I have to do. This
Yeah.
is unfortunate. I think I'm reasonably tolerant, but so working on my own in some capacity was good. And the profession that we fit that bill very well. So you work with people, yeah, you're all equals, you work together. But I think in a situation when I would have had to do something that I didn't think was right, I don't think I would have lasted very long. So that's the reason I went down the professional route.
That's really inspiring story. So, as a leader, like, what are some biggest challenges you faced in your leadership, and how did you overcome them? Because as a leader, we have to face a lot of negativity, lots of challenges in career. So, how you become like overcome them?
Yeah, I'm not sure one overcomes one anything, but there's some natural traits within human beings, right? And
Hmm.
I think those who know me, I like to consider myself as my better traits that I'm straightforward and I believe I care for people. I think that's the thing that makes me most proud of myself. Not the fact people are intelligent. Everybody is. There are people who do they go very far, discover things and so on. But I think caring for people and trying to do best for other human beings is what's always mattered to me. I think the one thing that challenges that one gets is that when you try to develop human beings and you train people and give opportunities to those who may not otherwise have had opportunities, I think that's been very satisfying for me. But you do very often come across this conflict that people have different views of themselves and their own capabilities than you might assess, right? That conflict is very difficult. For somebody like myself, has been very difficult to handle because people think you're being unfair to them. If you, in a large organization, you make choices. You promote people, you don't promote people, you do, and you make not choices. Some of those choices, not all choices are right, right? Even later on, you think that no, and in my life, I've had to pay for that in more than one way when you make the wrong choice, but you own it. You own those decisions because that's what you made. Those things, I think, conflicts with people's views of what they have themselves and your views. That's a very difficult thing. Sometimes very painful because people genuinely believe some things, and you have to make a decision which doesn't adhere to what they believe in. So that's been difficult. But as I said, you never overcome them. You have to take it. I think I still have that feelings today when there are things today with people. There are always conflicts when you work with hundreds of people. You're not going to be without conflicts. If nothing else, if there's a conflict between two people, you need to choose one side or choose what is right. So you always will come into conflict. But I don't think I take that very well at the moment. Even now, it hurts me a lot, and that sometimes is a difficult thing to live with. But you have to live with it.
Yeah. So very true. Agreed. So as a leader and also an actuary, how do you balance technical things with the need of for effective communication and people skills? Because in especially actually considered as a like introvert person, they don't know how to sell things because you are the entrepreneur too. So how you balanced both things and what's like advice for a young actuary from your side?
Yeah.
Regarding the balancing the
So the one
communication.
thing when you talk about technical skills, there is that's a given, right? You are an actuary. People come to you. If somebody comes to you as an actuary, people do come to me or other actuaries for advice, which is not actuarial, right? So that not at that capacity. But when somebody approaches you in an actuarial capacity, then you must have the technical wherewithals to do what you are, right? And if you don't, then either you should not take it or you should say that I need to go away, look at it to see if I have the capacity to do it, because it doesn't mean that if you don't know something now, that you can't pick it up and learn it and be comfortable with it. But whenever you deliver actuarial advice, you have to have the technical know-how. Once you do that, then I think the communication part is obviously exceedingly important because we work in a difficult area. We work in something which is quite technical and sometimes very difficult to understand or to explain to other people, right?
Yeah.
And to convert that into a simple way and to put it in a way that the person you're communicating to, depending on his or her capacity, how are they going to be able to or what they will understand. That is a skill that comes with time, and I think it's also important that one only takes on assignments. When I say assignment, it's even as part of a job or as part of this thing that you think that you not would be only be able to do it, but you will be you will be able to communicate what you've done and what your advice actually is. Because if you can't do that, then just doing it itself is not really worth anything because unless you're doing it for your own satisfaction or to learn something yourself. But I think that's important. But the technical skills have to be there. The communication varies. People have different levels of the ability to communicate. And I think the one area that I sometimes find that when talking about advice, I've seen this, and that's something that sometimes I feel that is possibly something I would advise people against. I sometimes feel people try to project that they know more than they actually know and understand, right? Which I believe is something that I would advise people to guard against. Right? Because a good professional will. There's no there's no shame in actually saying that you don't know something or follow something, right? And you need to look at it. And that doesn't mean you will always be in that state. You can go away and learn it, and then you will be able to do that. But I think to sometimes to talk about things when you actually don't understand it that is a very dangerous path to tread down, and that's something I would. Well, one is very often put in that, especially as a professional giving advice, one is often put in that situation where there's pressure to do so, right? Because that's you want to protect yourself, project yourself as somebody knowledgeable. But that's something that I believe people, I think, being straightforward and saying that this will get back to you or something like that. That's a better
True.
approach to have.
Agreed, agreed. So, what core values have guided you throughout your personal and professional life? Because every person has some values in their life. So, what was your values in your life to shape you this kind of personality?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've tried to, one doesn't necessarily always be successful, but is that I think being straightforward and honest, is truthful, is probably for me the biggest, if you like, uh, the biggest quality that or value that I would have. I would think I think I was lucky. My father was reputed for that when he was being as a very straightforward man, and I think that's something that I've always valued and tried to be there. It's not necessarily that everyone will view you in the same way, right? Because that people have different views about why one does something. But I think that by far the most. And the second value I think is caring about others. I think that's a value which I think we sometimes underestimated, right? Tell people, I tell my children that if you talk about people that you value, say talk about the Prophet Islam, that if there's quality in the Quran that is mentioned in the Quran, that so it's not that that you strong or intelligent, because that is a blessing for mankind that you are kind and gentle with. He had a gentle personality, right, and a caring personality. And that I think was, and obviously everyone knows about the fact that he was Sadiq in Amin. So that is important. But this quality is actually mentioned in the Quran, and this is something that I tell my children that God has put it there for a reason, right? So it's not that you have to have a long beard or you have to roll up with that. That's not mentioned. But the fact that you are kind and gentle with people, that is mentioned for the Prophet, right? So.
Yeah.
So that to me is very important, caring for others. Yeah.
Very, very impressive. So other than that, like what hobbies or passions do you pursue outside of work? कोई cricket खेलने का शौक था आपको or interesting hobby?
एक जमाने में बहुत शौक था. So I was, you can see I put on a lot of weight. That's a result of stopping playing sports. In the younger days, I played almost everything. I played a lot of cricket to start off with, but one had to give that up because that takes a lot of time. So I played cricket, hockey, soccer, uh, tennis, and squash. I think those are the ones I played most. But I was quite athletic when I was younger.
Okay.
That stopped when I think I started. So when you start your own professional firm, as I think others who've done the same, your boss Hatim, I'm sure will tell you that your the time that you have to do things other than work diminishes a huge amount, right? So as a result, what happened is that things I would like to do, but I do enjoy reading. So at some stage of my life, I took it and I realized I grew up in a very westernized environment, right? So I was a guitar playing, singing sort of person
Wow.
younger days before I.
Very
So
cool.
my son still plays the guitar. He's very 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 good, but he but. So I spent a lot of time learning about Islam because I thought that is a need, and
True.
uh, but in my younger days more so. So I try to keep a little bit of pace with that. Right, I do keep current with news. So that's the another thing that I do. I read a lot of all the news websites and so on, and try and form. One and unfortunately my other passion these days is playing with my grandchildren, spending time with them. So that's something that takes up my time. And if you're, if you're in one, I run multiple companies. To give you an idea, we are about all our entities put together. We used to be one large entity, and then I split them into different. But all of them put together are about 700 people. So it's a reasonable size to take care of. Some of them run on their own. I don't interfere, but some I actively manage. Although I'm trying to slowly ease myself away from work. So I do have a plan to retire. I'm 67, so it's not exactly young. So I do have a plan to try and retire. I'm scaling down work. But Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't leave a lot of time for other hobbies, right? Because when you get to you get to be somebody like I said, there's a lot of other issues and problems that people come to you with, and you need to, if you want to try and help them out, then that takes time as well. So that's
So वाकई like these all hobbies are very surprising for us. सबको बड़ा मजा आएगा ये सुन के कि उमर साहब ये सब कुछ भी करते थे. It's like very impressive. And so you have a lot of achievements in your life. According to you, what was the biggest one? जैसे जहाँ आपको लगा कि like this is the real happiness. यहाँ मुझे खुशी मिली है. कोई ऐसी biggest achievement
देखिए
आप.
मुझे what I've done that I feel like there's two parts to this, right? One is that individualistic level and one is at institution. I think alhamdulillah, I think more or less I started with two people, Siddharth and Heather. That's where the Siddharth Heather Morshad came from, and then we now they're different names to the entities. But I think whatever built the fact that I'm able to leave that, and not necessarily for my own benefit, but I'm able to leave that because there are people working there. There are lots of families that are working, being supported, and the fact that they will continue after me, right? But that part, that is a huge amount of satisfaction because you then left something, right? It's not that then when you retire, it disappears with you. So that's one. The second and probably the most satisfying thing I've had is that I believe that I've been able to have an ability to facilitate people. I'd say facilitate, that's the more, a lot of people to, in both the IT profession, the accounting profession, and the actuarial profession, to bring them in and that facilitate their finding their way to where they are, right? In some cases, a significant role, in some cases, just a minor role, a stepping stone for somebody to develop. And that's, what that person does later on for me. But the fact that people are successful in places, they're making a difference, that I've had some role to play with that, that's an enormous amount of satisfaction as such. Sometimes the sort of thing that you write, I read your LinkedIn. I wouldn't use some of the words that you've used, but the fact that people do think of me, it's an enormous amount of pride for me as such, and joy. It's a joy. It's more joy than pride. I don't consider myself to be an arrogant person, but alhamdulillah, the fact that I've been able to touch so many, I think that's an enormous amount of satisfaction. And I hope Allah Ta'ala will also see it that way in the hereafter. So, and maybe I get some points for that.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, like you helped many people from different backgrounds. So you are an actuary and you have seen people from diverse background entering in this field. Do you see actuarial role expanding beyond core insurance into areas like management consultancy, tech, and financial services? Because your vision and your point of view matters a lot for us.
Yeah.
So what
So,
is
this is I actually, Josie. So, what you acquire actually when you train is actually acquire a certain set of skills, right?
yeah.
As does an accountant, as does an engineer, as does a data scientist, and so on and so forth, right? So you have some people who are not actuaries, but who are better practical actuaries than some qualified actuaries, right? And so on. That's just but the actual profession is something which I saw as being way beyond just insurance, and it has applications in so many areas. And in developed countries, they also apply this. Actually, you can see it in actuaries working in diverse areas. In places like us, because not because we Pakistan, I think we've excelled ourselves at producing good actuaries. That's recognized, I think, worldwide almost now. But I believe that the society that we live in the country that we live in, that it probably doesn't recognize the fact, not just for actuaries, for anybody, any skilled person to be able to make a contribution. And that's unfortunately sad, right? Because the skill set that you have, what you make set of numbers, being able to project things and make decisions based on simulation or projection as to what are the different outcomes, that I believe has lots more application, much more than just insurance or retirement schemes, right? Even to give you a practical example, place like Pakistan, demographics, right, have a huge amount of as how you develop the country, how you plan for it, uh, how many hospitals you need, how many schools you need, where all of these have, to my mind, actuarial application. Yeah, they'll be done by people who are not actuaries, mainly because actuaries are skilled and expensive, and insurance companies pay them a lot more. But effectively, these are all skills that can be had, and they're very very useful because you're numerate, you're able to sort of like use your projection of numbers and probability and so on what I think sometimes people define that to put some sort of sanity in uncertain circumstances, right? Some numbers, something that people can plan with. So I believe that what we are taught is invaluable skills as actuaries. And that's a long time ago when we were setting up Pakistan, actually, the few of us people got together, Samir Hassan Saab, Numan Saab, myself, and some others, Shuja Saab. And I think we were trying to figure out, should we, a guy was wanting to go out and expand and sell the idea of for people to become actuaries. And those days we also brought out some ads. I don't know if people remember them being actually, I will write some supplements just to create the awareness that this profession exists. And I think there was this debate as to we don't want an oversupply, right? But I thought that no, this is a profession going to go places. As technology develops and as awareness develops, there's going to be a great more and more demand for actuaries, right? And given the difficulty of the exams and so on, there'll always be a constraint on supply because there's a natural cutoff that you have on mathematical ability, if I can put it that way. So I believe that what Anjan is right. I don't see this you see today even actually is continuing to be in demand and demand is exploding. What does happen though is because there are not enough actuaries, then other people will fill the space which actually were otherwise have filled, right? So other
Yeah,
professions, and so
true.
that's natural because the work still has to be done.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I
So
believe that this is a great profession, and the constraint is being able to get through exams, right? If we can get through the exams, then this is a profession to be in.
true, true. So finally, how do you define success at this uh, at this age? And what do you like really think? Because हमारे लिए तो you are the legend and you are the most successful person in actuarial world. So how do you feel? Can you have achieved that success?
Yeah, success varies for each individual. Everyone has their own objectives as they
Yeah,
want to
true, true.
what they want to achieve, and for some it's money, for some it's position, for some it's
Yeah.
being head of a large organization or whatever. I believe that given my own nature and my own culture, I said that I wouldn't do very well in a job because of my nature. But I believe that I have been successful because I've done what I think I wanted to do. Right? Nobody ever achieved success. I would have liked to do a lot. I did part of my life. I also went slightly, perhaps is not very well known. I tried to get into public finance, which is actually working. So for example, I even ran a small department of the government of Sindh for a little while as a consultant, as a consulting arm, and tried to get into that area and to bring improvements. But then realized very quickly it's a really uphill task, right? And that has nothing to do with your ability or the amount of effort. It's a lot to do with the way society is structured, and probably a lot more is needed to change it than just bright individuals who have good intent. So that's something so ideally that's what I would have liked to have done when I was very young and coming back to Pakistan. One of his visions of being able to change society and so on. Then later on in life, you realize that no, let me do my little bit in that area where people actually understand who I am and what I do. And if one manages to do something in that little area, then that is a success, right?
Okay.
Unfortunately, Pakistan is a long way from from being reformed.
Yeah. So, what is the message you want to give our audience? Because audience में बहुत सारे लोग हैं, बहुत सारे professions के लोग हैं और इसके अलावा students भी हैं, and people who are thinking to pursue actuarial science वो भी हैं. So, what like is the message from your side to them?
Yeah, I believe that obviously you have to have if you like, a liking for this type of work, right? Don't do things that you don't have a liking for. That's important. And there, I believe the profession, as I said, I believe the skill set that eventually we gain. Now, some of us qualify, some of us don't, right? The skill set is still picked on by everybody, developed for every individual, whether it be a student, you don't get through the exams, or an associate or a fellow or a senior fellow, people who are successful. I believe that skill set that I think some core values like be very straightforward. This has nothing to do with the actual science anyway. Be straightforward, recognize what it is, portray yourself to what extent you are, what your abilities are, portray yourself to that extent, take on that work that you think you can deliver, right? Or say if you think there's going to be some uncertainty, the person you're doing the work for, make sure that they understand that, right? So I think being straightforward and clear in your concepts is very important. For those who pursue the exams, even the students, I believe that you'll pick up significant skills right along the way. So even if one doesn't qualify, the skills that you pick up will land you in good stead elsewhere. Of course, if you have the ability, then it's probably a good idea to pursue, because to have a qualification means that somebody's telling you, okay, you have the skill set. They're certifying it. Whereas if you don't have that, then some employer or somebody you're dealing with will have to gauge for themselves whether you might still have it, right? So I think no, I believe this is a good profession if one has the acumen for doing numeric work. So I'm not sure if that's very clear, but I think with the other part of it, which is like being straightforward and doing what you're capable of doing and don't overextend yourself, I think that's probably the more useful thing for the broader audience.
Yeah, sure. Very well said. So this is it, and thank you so much again for joining me and joining us. Everyone is so excited. जैसे ही इंशाल्लाह कल तक हम ये ऑनलाइन कर देंगे, ऑन एयर कर देंगे. So आप बहुत मजा आया आपसे बात करके. It was really
Thank you.
nice session with you.
No, thank you.
So
I'm really grateful. I'm grateful because I said that for me to be able to try to influence people's lives is
yeah.
important. And if anything that can do that, that's
Yes,
great.
you
Thank
you
you.
are the influencer for us. So, okay, thank you so much for your time again.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, Allah Hafiz.
Assalamu alaikum.